All right, well, hello everybody. My name is Stephen Badorf, and I'm the marketing coordinator at JAST MSP. Usually Tahir Hamid would be leading this webinar introduction, but he's just had the birth of his second child, so congratulations to him. But I'm happy to be leading this webinar, and I'd like to thank everyone for taking time out of your day to attend. We believe you'll get a lot of value out of attending this webinar and seeing the ConnectWise Fortify tool in action. So without any delay, I'd like to introduce our presenter for this morning, Rich Torville. He's the senior sales engineer and cybersecurity specialist with 11 years of industry experience and 3 years of direct cybersecurity experience, making him an excellent presenter for this topic. Welcome, Rich. If nobody has anything to say, we can get started.
All right, great. Thank you. Today we're going to be going over the ConnectWise Fortify Endpoint solution. And as was just mentioned, my name is Rich Torville, Senior Sales Engineer in cybersecurity. 3+ years talking about cybersecurity every day, day in and day out. 11+ years industry knowledge. So continuing to dive in, the agenda here, we're going to talk about why cybersecurity is important. Believe it or not, there are a lot of people out there that don't understand cybersecurity, why it's important, and the different aspects of it. Then we're going to talk about the ConnectWise Security Operations Center, or SOC, and then we're going to say a few things about the Fortify Endpoint product itself. Ransomware and other cyber attacks are becoming much more prolific. You need to be protected. Old methods are no longer enough to do the trick. Zero-day attacks, multi-trust models, zero trust models. These are all different aspects of cybersecurity. Third-party issues are also a big problem. You need to be aware of all of these things. So there are some common misconceptions in cybersecurity. We're going to go through a few of them right now. If you're a target, if you have money and data, you're a target. You may think you're too small, you're not important enough. Guess what? You're a target. It doesn't matter. You can be hit at any time. You don't have a good protection plan in place. Remember, there's multiple aspects to cybersecurity. You have to be protected against those multi-vector, the zero-day, the polymorphic attacks. You have to be ready for those and know that you're defended. You have too much data. You have too much going on, too many things, too many irons in the fire. What if you do get hit? Do you have a recovery plan? Who does what? Or is it mass confusion? Do you know what's going on? Do you know what will happen? And who's on the field to take responsibility whenever that cyber attack happens? What about third-party risk? Do you know if your third-party software is up to date? What about other companies that you're working with today? Are they taking cybersecurity seriously? These are all attack vectors. Decision makers don't feel that security is a priority. This has to start from the top down. The final point, the weak point between the keyboard and the office chair. This is the biggest risk point. If you're not educating that weak points, making them aware of cybersecurity, nothing, you could have all the protection plans in place. You still have that major weak point. How many of these things sound familiar to you? Cybersecurity needs to be a business discussion. It needs to start in the boardroom with the leadership. Security has to be baked into the culture in order for it to work. It's a trickle-down effect, and it has to start at the top. And this is a cultural shift that every organization needs to be making. Because the truth is, it's not a matter of if an attack is going to happen. It's a matter of when. So what can you as a thought leader, decision maker, be doing to take the next steps necessary to ensure that you're protected? You see, cybersecurity requires a multifaceted approach as defined in the NIST 800-171 framework. NIST 800-171 is basically the framework for all compliance mandates in the US. Good cybersecurity requires a multi-pronged, multifaceted approach. Number one, as I mentioned on a previous slide, you need to educate the weak point between the keyboard and the office chair. You need to determine where your users are at risk and protect them from those risks. You need to be able to detect threats as they arise, not after they've already infected your networks and endpoints. You need to use tools that provide you the capability to recover from these threats that may have already hit your business. As you're going to find out, you could have a threat on your network right now and not even be aware of it if you don't have the proper tools there. So, do you know how common cyber attacks work? It's hard to believe, but many don't have a basic grasp of these. Ransomware is going to come in as a payload. Could be an email attachment, a file deposited onto your network or personal device, or it can even come in as a script that comes down to your system from a compromised website. That file is then going to execute, and it's going to contact the hacker to notify that it's been planted and provides the target information, the path that it may have taken to get there, IP address, maybe it might grab some credentials so that the hacker has those. And once that hacker has all that information, the files are encrypted and the ransom must be paid to decrypt those files. Backups are not always a perfect solution to defeat this. Often your snapshots are deleted or encrypted as well. Business email compromise is another way that the bad guys are getting money from you. In this case, an email account on your domain has been compromised, most likely through the credentials being released on the dark web. The hacker then uses social engineering to determine important contacts within your company. The hacker will then send an urgent request to one of your team members, often asking for money to be sent to a specific account ASAP. The funds are sent, the hacker has a contact that he can continue to use. And if everything looks legitimate, and these hackers are very, very good at what they do, if everything looks legitimate, then next time that request comes into that contact within your company, that individual is just going to send that money again. You're going to wonder why this $60,000 went to this bank account. Why did this $20,000 go this time? That's what it is. It's business email compromise. So the FBI puts together a report every year. It's called the IC3 Threat Report. And the IC3 is the Internet Crime Complaint Center. This table might be a little difficult for you to see. I'm going to describe it to you. Is showing crimes by type. And at the top, phishing, smishing, and farming. Different types of phishing attacks. Run away with the title for 2021 with over 320,000 victims. Personal data breach, 51,000 plus victims. Credit and fraud, 16,000 victims. It's important to note that these crimes are only taken from the data for cybersecurity incidents reported to the FBI in 2021. If the crime isn't reported to the FBI, the Internet Crime Complaint Center, the IC3, it's not going to show up in this report. And here we have a different type of relationship, a different view, different explanation of those crime types. So the last slide, we showed you the number of crimes by type. This is the total cost by crime. On the last slide, phishing was the number one with 200 plus thousand reported. On this slide, we're seeing business email compromise, what I just described a few slides ago. Business email compromise and email account compromise accounted for $2.39 billion last year. Personal data breach was 517 million. Identity theft, $278 million. And remember, these numbers are for attacks that were actually reported to the Internet Crime Complaint Center in 2021. Because of the embarrassment that can be caused if these reports become public, many go unreported. I know of 2 incidents of ransomware last year that were not reported, and each ransom was over $8 million. And if you look on this slide, ransomware had a total cost last year reported to the FBI just over $49 million. You add those two in, that's another 16,000 onto there. These numbers also do not include the cost for lost time, lost business, lost hardware. So you want to use maybe a 3 to 5x multiplier on these. That ransomware cost is just what they charge to pay the ransom, not the lost business, lost time, lost hardware. These costs are much larger than you think they are. Do you want to be hit with something like that? You need to be protected. Yet another piece of information. This one comes from the IBM Data Breach Report for 2021. $180. This is the average cost for each individual piece of PII. That's personal identifiable information during a breach. So if you have 100 employees and you have 5 pieces of PII for each employee, that's 500 instances of PII. PII can be names, phone numbers, home addresses, social security numbers, email addresses. That's what PII is. The example that I'm giving is very, very low. So if you have 5 pieces for PII for each employee, that's 100 or 500 instances of PII. And according to this, that equals $90,000. In 2020, this cost was $150. That's an increase of 20% in 1 year. And that's just for your employees. What about the PII, personal identifiable information that you may have for your clients, such as those names, phone numbers, email addresses, physical street addresses? The magnitudes of this are incredible. Some other good points from the IBM Breach Report. Stolen or compromised credentials were the most expensive cause of malicious data breaches, increasing the average total cost of a breach to almost 4.77 million among the companies in the study. On average, companies in the 2021 study required 212 days to identify and 75 days to contain a breach, combining for an average life cycle of 287 days. So that point I made a few minutes ago, where you could have a hacker on your network right now and you're not aware of it, that's that 212 days to identify. So what this means is that from the time that a hacker is on a network until he was detected was a period of 212 days on average, and then an average of another 75 days for damage control, remediation, legal issues, and so on. This is called dwell time, the amount of time that that hacker is on your network before he actually drops his payload. He's been there for a long time, gathered as much information as he can, and then he delivers his ransomware payload. You and your service providers have to fix that damage. This can all be prevented with the proper tools in place. So even though ransomware attacks and cyber crimes often aren't reported to the FBI, we know that 51% of businesses have been hit with ransomware or other cyber attacks. It's only a matter of time. It's coming. When it comes to ransomware attacks, we're seeing an incredible increase in costs to SMBs, as well as a great increase in the ransomware attacks and other cyber threats targeting them. As of the midpoint of last year, every Maze and Doppelpaymer attack resulted in data exfiltration. This means that even though a payment has been made, the hackers are still taking your data and holding that for ransom as well, threatening to release that onto the dark web without an additional larger payment. So if you get hit with ransomware, you're making a payment to have your data decrypted, and then another often larger payment to get your data back and prevent it from being released on the dark web. They're double dipping on you. They're getting as much money as they can, right? If you don't have the proper protection, detection, prevention, and recovery plans in place, your only option will be to pay the ransom. So let's dig a little deeper here. It's important to note that even with an outstanding suite of tools, or the specific tool that we're going to talk about here in a minute, you may be concerned that you'll be faced with a large number of alerts. You may be worried that you'll need to expand your team to cover those alerts, resulting in a much larger investment than you're planning for, one you may not want to make. We have you covered there. The Fortify Endpoint tool that we're talking about is fully supported by our SOC, our Security Operations Center. Our SOC, Security Operations Center, is manned by a team of cybersecurity experts. The SOC is based primarily in the U.S. in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. We have offices in Atlanta, Houston, and Salt Lake City, as well as Mumbai and Pune in India. The SOC is manned 24/7 to support you. Our SOC is there to provide aid and resolution when an issue goes beyond a quick fix. Our team's going to analyze the threat and provide aid in that remediation and roll back to the last good point before the threat hit, and finally run a follow-up investigation into what happened. It's all included in the services. In the last 18 months, our partners have deployed this tool, Fortify Endpoint, powered by SentinelOne, to an incredible number of SMBs with over 400,000 total endpoints deployed and protected. So you see, this isn't just software. It's a complete suite supported 24/7 by a team of security professionals. Our SOC team members, and these are ConnectWise team members, ConnectWise employees. They hold certifications from a large number of the certification and accreditation authorities, and the team is fully comprised of ConnectWise employees, completely vetted during the hiring process, background checks, and so on. This is the ConnectWise SOC. It's not outsourced. So let's talk about Fortify Endpoint. That's why you're here, really. Fortify Endpoint is a tool that goes far beyond typical legacy antivirus. It's endpoint detection and response, EDR, that uses not just standard definitions of malicious files like traditional antivirus, but also artificial intelligence and machine learning to detect new threats on the fly on every one of your endpoints, desktop and server, Windows, Mac, and Linux. Legacy endpoint protection can't match today's new threat landscape. There's ransomware, Trojans, worms, fileless and memory-based attacks, browser-based exploits. You're on the internet, you have your browser open, whichever browser you prefer. If it's not 100% up to date, there could be a security hole in that browser. You hit an infected website, and all of a sudden you have a threat spreading across your endpoint, maybe across your network. We also have live attacks, script-based, PowerShell, PowerSploit, Visual Basic, VBS attacks. These are all zero-day attacks. They're becoming the norm in today's world. While legacy endpoint protection may have worked well yesterday, advanced EDR is what you need today and for the future. Now, there's a good bit of information on this slide. I'm going to try and make this as clear as possible for you. Fortify Endpoint, powered by SentinelOne, has multiple threat detection engines, powered by artificial intelligence and machine learning to prevent malicious attacks. This covers multiple aspects of the NIST 800-171 framework, including protect, detect, respond, and recover. You remember that from one of the initial slides? NIST 800-171, protect yourself, detect threats, respond and recover from those threats. This is all tying together here. The protect is covered by the static AI detection engine. I call this the basic threat detection engine. Like traditional antivirus and endpoint protection, this uses a standard definition file, and whenever a threat lands on your endpoint, if it matches a listing on that definitions file, that signatures file, it's known to be malicious. It's killed and quarantined automatically. It's preventing the attacks in a pre-execution format. That's the basic threat detection engine, or the static AI detection engine. The detect is managed by the behavioral analysis family of threat detection engines. This family watches everything that executes on an endpoint. When something malicious happens, the tool Fortify Endpoint, powered by SentinelOne, logs every action done by that execution. If something is found to be safe, that log is removed. Nothing to worry about. If an execution performs a suspicious or a malicious act, everything associated with that execution is killed and quarantined. That triggers a job for our SOC, our Security Operations Center. And that's who takes care of the respond and recover actions. Some infections, some things found by Fortify Endpoint powered by SentinelOne can be remediated automatically, while others do require interaction from the SOC team. The SOC is your team of experts managing this tool and taking care of you 24/7. The SOC has the capability to simply click a few buttons and remediate the threat. That's pretty effective. We also have the capability to roll back to a point in time before that threat landed on your endpoint to eliminate it. Two different ways we can do that remediation. And that's done right through the agent, the SentinelOne agent that lives on your endpoints. So this is, as I said, endpoint detection and response, monitored and managed by the ConnectWise Security Operations Center. That's what we have to provide for you. What questions do you have? Any questions about any of the slide decks that we've gone, or the slides that we've gone over? Maybe those the IBM Breach Report or the IC3 report. More information about the tool.
I can say that we've been using this on our clients, about probably a little over half of our clients for the last 3 years, and it's been fantastic. I mean, we haven't had any breaches, so it's kind of boring. You put it on there and it just works. So, but we just in our organization we stopped out over 1,200 attacks that have come on to those endpoints. So that's on. We're roughly protecting about 700 endpoints, and that many attacks have been stopped.
So, and that's the idea behind the tool. Without a tool and the SOC Security Operations Center behind that tool, how many of those attacks may have been air quotes successful from the point of view of the hacker, from the bad guys?
Right. So that's why we've made the decision to make this a standard product across all of our clients and give this added protection, just because I think that it's good for everyone involved. So
I work with hundreds of MSPs that provides this tool to thousands of their customers, and there's nothing but good words to say about it. Any other questions and comments we may have today?
I like to add, excuse me, I like to add to Shane's comment. We're running it here also with our client base. Probably at about 1,800 endpoints deployed, and like Shane said, does all the block and tackling for us. It's just a great product. We've had zero issues with it, zero impact on software. Business applications running properly with the software. Some of these EDRs do become nuisances with some older applications. This one works very well. And the SOC team is absolutely phenomenal. Get back to us super quick. If it's an emergency, they call us. It's a great package for our client base.
I love it. That's great. That's great to hear. I've been talking about this tool for coming up on 4 full years now. I've seen it do things that people never even expected out of it, along with the support of the SOC. It's an award-winning package. I say it's award-winning. Maybe it hasn't won awards. I can't exactly say for sure what it has won, but it should be winning awards if it hasn't.
I give it an award. 2 thumbs up.
Hey, we'll take it.
No, it's been really good to us. I mean, like Mike is saying, some of these products you put on, they cause more problems than they solve. But this SentinelOne is really a low impact software, especially for everything that it's doing behind the scenes. I mean, it's amazing what all it does, and having the ability to send it over to the SOC so that they can to monitor those alerts 24/7 and jump on them after hours. It's really phenomenal what they're doing with it. So.
That's a good point too. It is less than 2% resource utilization. I'm running it on my laptop right now. You don't even know it's there until something comes up and you need it there. Then you know it's there because it's protecting you. It's catching those threats as they come up. Those zero-day exploits, the multi-pronged attacks, it's catching them. So if there are no other questions, I'd like to thank you all for your time today, and hope everyone has a good week and a good weekend coming up here.